Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman addressed a power-packed audience at the 2019 edition of the ET Awards, saying that GST simplification is in the works. Listening.
Between July and September, so many times frequently to me and to the various other ministers, that we were able to, what we think, respond in time. Maybe in many occasions not really adequately, but did respond in time. I take this opportunity to first of all thank you for believing that this government will hear you out, and also believing that there could be some response from the ministries. And therefore, because it has been a scattered attempt over the 3 months, there was this huge crisis that there was no liquidity in the market. We wanted to prove that liquidity is there somewhere, but it's no good being where it is. But first of all, wanted to prove that the liquidity exists and there was no evaporation of the liquidity per se. So we proved with the Reserve Bank by our side, and I'm very grateful for the continuous cooperation we received from the Reserve Bank. And with the Reserve Bank by our side, we were able to showcase that, matter of fact, it wasn't liquidity or want of liquidity which was the crisis, but the crisis was that the liquidity was not moving where it had to be moved so that businesses can move forward. So with that, the liquidity issue was addressed. Just first step, that there was no liquidity shortage, but where was it? It wasn't certainly in a place where it could help business. So next step was to make sure that we moved the liquidity both to the NBFCs and to the consumers so that they can go ahead with their activity, buying of goods or establishing the business, or spending on the family and so on. So deliberately, although it had this little resemblance to a not so famous earlier attempt to have a loan extension to the customers. Earlier it was called Loan Mela. I was wary of that word, so we consciously called it loan outreach, bank outreach. And during the outreaches, which were held in two phases, one was during the Navaratras and the other was during before and after Diwali. The data has come out. I would just very quickly refer to it. It was over 2.5 lakh crores. We wanted to be sure that the mergers happened so that India would have banks which were scaling up enough to meet up with the growing India's aspirations. So for that purpose, we had even allocated 70,000 crores in the budget itself so that the banks could use that for both their consolidation and also for business expansion. That in a way has come of help when we looked at the liquidity crisis and wanted the liquidity to move over from the banks to other consumers. Home buyers who had a problem, for whom, because it will have a bearing on the real estate industry, we wanted to be sure that we provided an alternative investment mechanism through which buyers could get their houses back where the projects had come to a grinding halt, so that if this alternative investment mechanism can help them to get the money for completing the projects and handing over the home buyers their homes for which they had already taken loans from the banks, which they couldn't service. Of course, they hadn't become an NPA, as our anchor very clearly said, but still that was a stress on people. So home buyers and real estate was also addressed. More importantly, for getting newer businesses coming back to India. I had made this statement when I was attending the Fund Bank meeting in Washington. I said I'll form a task group which will look into those companies which want to get out of China. And also because in the meanwhile I had announced the corporate tax cut, there were very many companies which were showing interest wanting to come back. So this task force has already started contacting very many of these companies. The last count I came to know was about 12 of them have already been spoken to, their minds understood, their expectation listed out, so that the government can come up with a concrete offer for them to shift from where they are now, so that the ecosystems can get built here, newer industries can come on. So the word that was given for bringing newer industries which are moving out of China is actively moving forward, and I'm sure I'll be able to report some progress on that. I've gone around the country meeting with all the tax administrators to make sure that even if it is impossible for them to collect the target they still would not do anything which is going to be construed as harassment. And towards that, I've also made sure that a faceless assessment will be in place through which there shall be minimum human interface. You're not going to have anyone unnecessarily meeting you, unpleasantly having a conversation which could be construed as harassment. So faceless assessment system has been put in place, and that shall help in clearly getting it lots more transparent without a sense of somebody is trying to mess around with me. And if that has been introduced, that's all introduced for the direct taxation. We are ensuring that will also be in place for the indirect too. Last word on GST, the systems are really being worked on so that it will become as simple as we claim it to be. We would further like to simplify it. And as regards the rationalization of the taxation there, too many rates, too many high rates, and so on, we are having a good conversation with all the states, wanting to make sure that those essential items which affect the lives of poor will be kept at the lowest, if not exempt. But for the rest of them, we are trying to rationalize. We are willing to hear, willing to react, willing to give interventions where necessary. And I invite the industry to feel absolutely free to convey your sense of what is going on, so that the government is a responsive government being guided by a Prime Minister who's really showcased what it means to be a developing and progressive kind of a government.